Okay, so the Heather Antucci Giraffe and Randall Keith Bean transcripts are out, and I finally finished reading them, and I was trying to figure out how to make a video about this without it being too long, because there's like over 1,000 pages, and I think what I'm going to do is stick to the highlights. I'm going to do it in chronological order, start to finish. Try to explain things. You know, if you support Heather, try and keep an open mind and actually read this. One of the things I've noticed is that a lot of people over at a lot of her supporters on her support websites don't actually read transcripts. They don't do the research. They simply believe what Heather says, and they don't ask critical questions. You can't just trust what somebody says. You have to actually verify what's being said. Anyways, let's start. This is day 1. Okay, so this is before the trial starts. They're dealing with motions and that kind of stuff. And in this segment, Heather says, this particular instance, which I'm going to make, blah, blah. She says that this particular indictment was canceled, praetera ab initio, so I just wanted to make that part of this record, blah, blah. I don't consent or give authorization for Cynthia Davidson to file such a blatant deceptive act, to practice, to reinstate an indictment, blah, blah. Why is this important? Number 1, Heather thought that the case was not going to go to trial. Number 2, she thought that she had canceled the indictment, which was not true. The indictment was never canceled. Number 3, she said that there was an attempt to reactivate the indictment, quote unquote, unlawfully and illegally. Of course, that's not true. That there was a typological error in the typographical error in the indictment, and that was fixed. So number 1, it shows that Heather didn't know what was going on. It's improvisation, and you're going to see that throughout the trial. Number 2, she believes that she can cancel indictments just by saying that it's canceled. Okay, so the first witness is Parker Still. Now, Parker Still isn't very interesting. He's only called there to identify Heather and Randy. But one of the interesting things that starts out. He says, one of the ways the FBI gets this case is we rely on private citizens, complaints that come in within that private citizen realm. Also, financial institutions are a big source of information. And in this case, USAA reached out to channels, ultimately routed to the FBI Knoxville division. And he says that it happened on July 10th. So, contrary to what... let's call them, contrary to what OPBT is saying, this case did not start with the Federal Reserve or whatever. The case was started, the criminal investigation was started when USAA contacted the FBI because they got ripped off. They talk a lot about the arrest. Here's when the FBI gets wind of Heather, quote, okay, were you after he was arrested? Were you asked to contact anyone by the defendant's friends? Answer, yes. I was provided a piece of paper with the name Heather on it, and it contained a phone number. It was at this time, it was represented as seen to us that this was an attorney or someone we should call. Yes, ma'am. Then there's a long description of the motorhome. Basically, they're trying to, the prosecution is trying to make it look like it was a luxury vehicles, therefore make it look like Randall was motivated by greed, basically. Anyways, and then we get answer, and did you ever contact the defendant, Heather Antucci Giraffe? Yes, ma'am, we did. At the scene, we were given a piece of paper and a phone number. As I said, the FBI, what we do is talk to folks, so of course, we're going to reach out to the name Heather and that number, who we believe by that time to be Miss Heather Antucci Giraffe. And during that call, she specifically referenced that she was planning military operations. And did she identify herself as an attorney? During that time, she said it was being held out as an attorney. And after that, did she end the call after that telling you that she was planning military action? Yes, ma'am. So basically, they call Heather and she tells them that she's planning military operations. And anyways, this is the whole reason the prosecution calls Parker Still, quote, "Are you familiar with the appearance of Miss Heather HATJ Draft?" "I am, yes ma'am. I've seen her in court in Washington, D.C. "Okay. Can you identify Miss HATJ Draft? Is she sitting in the courtroom?" "Yes ma'am. To my right, to your left, I see Miss Heather HATJ Draft in a black coat there sitting at defense counsel table." "Okay, and can you identify Mr. Randall Bean?" "I can. To my right, to your left, I see Mr. Randall Bean with a black tie and white shirt." This is the whole purpose of calling Parker Still. Parker Still doesn't really have anything else to do with the case, which I'm guessing is going to be one of the things, which has been one of the things that Heather supporters have been confused about. I think Parker Still, the case hinges on Parker Still. Of course, this is not true. The only reason Parker Still was called there is to identify them. This is something that's done in all criminal cases. You have to point to the guy. Yeah, that's the guy that shot the dude, or yeah, that's the guy that killed the guy. You have to identify the guy. Anyway, now we get to the cross-examination by Heather. Heather asked him, "Okay, so on the 11th you seized a motorhome which had been bought 4 days prior and paid cash for, but then grabbed the cash as well as part of the evidence of crime." "No, ma'am, you're getting into some legal stuff. I mean, I don't think that money has been seized." Heather continues, "The money has never been seized or secured to preserve the evidence of the possible or alleged crime." "No, the money has not been being seized." This is explained later on in the trial. Basically, the money isn't seized until after the guilty verdict. They don't seize the money before. And they explain it. There's like a forfeiture process after the guilty verdict, blah, blah. That's when they get the money. But Heather, despite going to law school, doesn't know that. But she tries to turn it into a thing. Alright, continue with the Heather's cross-examination. "Okay, on July 11th, prior to any moment, did you ever present a warrant to Mr. Bean?" "No, man, I didn't. That's just some stuff on TV where we serve people, put a warrant in their hands. That's just not general practice where you would hand someone a warrant generally." Now, this was something that happened back in August. They were claiming that there was no warrant against Randall, that Randall didn't have any outstanding warrants. And this is important because on day one of the trial, Heather was still under the impression that there was no warrant against Randy. The warrant shows up later on in the trial, and it was actually it was filed in the case. But Heather didn't know that there was a warrant against Randall on day one of the trial, which means that she did zero prep work. She did zero research on the case. This was the arrest was in August. Trial was in January. So think about that. That's almost 4 months, and she did zero prep work again because she thought it was never going to go to trial. She thought that her sovereign paperwork would get the case dismissed. Then there's a bit where Heather complains about the FBI using excessive force. It doesn't really have any effect on anything. Now, then Heather goes back and says, "Okay, you've just blown my mind with the statement that you made that this is in regards to Miss Davidson's question regarding whose money it was that he stole, and you said that it was USAA's money." Answer: "That's my understanding, that USAA is the one who's out." I mean, no, my question is, there was supposedly 30 plus transactions from the Federal Reserve to USA. Are you telling me just now that you can go into a bank online and just set up a bank account with USA and put some money in there just because it was my understanding of this was the Federal Reserve, that your position was that it was the Federal Reserve's money which had been transferred to USA. Yes, ma'am. I think the way I understand it is that the Federal Reserve put money in USAA, then it was recalled by the Federal Reserve, and now USAA eats loss. Now, I'm going to predict that people who support Heather are going to interpret this as proof that the money Randall took came from the Federal Reserve. Unfortunately, this is not true, and we find out later why it's not true. And by the way, continuing on, Heather says, so then the money itself that you say was stolen was actually stolen from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. So it continues along that line. Parker still doesn't seem to really understand how the scam works. It's the other lady in the Federal Reserve guy that understands the scam better. He just has a loose understanding of the scam. He's not required to understand the scam. He's just a guy that goes to arrest a guy. Then there's the bank lady that testifies, and there's a huge. They go line by line over all of Randall's bank statements. For example, here they're talking about May 18th, 2017 to June 19th, 2017. There's deposits of over $13,000, and he bounces 3 checks. Now the prosecution uses Randall bounces a whole bunch of checks in the year leading up to the arrest. So they use that as evidence that Randall was short on money or in debt or something like that. Randall disputes that, but the jury can interpret the evidence whichever way they want. All right, so day 2, we got Monica Alcala. She's the security person for the bank. I already discussed her testimony concerning the 10-day hold, blah, blah. Now that during Heather's cross, Heather asked, you had stated that on 10th you became involved, and that was the date that you contacted the FBI. Is that correct? Right, my director contacted the FBI, and I worked with him to gather the information on what was going on with the account. So once again, it was USAA that contacted the FBI. It was not the Federal Reserve or whoever else Heather Ann is claiming contacted the FBI. This is first mention of Harvey Dent by Monica. This is and what? This is Heather talking. And what? You stated you have found a video by Harvey Dent? Yes. Okay. What date was that? Again, I don't know dates. When we get a case, we work on it as bits and pieces come up. After this happened, I can tell you there was a lot of research into documents received. Video, if I had to, I could pull up the emails that we're communicating, but I don't know the exact dates. Heather asked, did you ever speak with Harvey Dent? No. Okay, and I don't believe that is his correct name. No. Question, it's just an alias? Answer, it's his YouTube name, I guess. Then there's a discussion about the 10-day hold thing. Quote, this is Heather. Okay, thank you. Let me just check and see if I have any more questions here. Oh, I do have one last question. In the vulnerabilities that we talked about where there's the 10-day, you have to hold it for 10 days because it takes you guys so long to get money from a secondary institution within the Federal Reserve System. Has that been resolved? Answer, yes. Okay, and in fact, as of September 15th, all ACH payments are same day instead of a 2 to 10 day receipt in the hold. Heather answers, no. What same date? Monica says, the transaction doesn't process same day. That's still Federal Reserve. ACH transactions can go anywhere from 1 day to 10 days. What we resolved is that we're putting holds on CDs before 8 o'clock the following day. We're not waiting till batch to do that. So this is here. Monica explained that they fixed the security hole, which Randy exploited either on purpose or accidentally. My personal opinion is that it was accidental. Then we have a question here from, this is from the prosecutor. Okay, and so his balance is close to $1 million at this point. Ultimately, where did this money come from? Answer, the fraudulently established CDs. Also, I wanted to point it out. Every time Heather begins a sentence, she says, she says, quote, without prejudice, moving forward, Miss Alcala, blah, blah. By the way, here we go. This is Heather. The next time she gets multiple recross examination opportunities. Anyways, she says, Miss Alcala, in regards to, you had said that when Miss Davidson just asked you where the funding came from for those loan payments and whatnot, you had stated that the bad funds had come from the CDs. Answer, yes. Heather asks, is that correct? Monica says, correct. And your determination and even classification today as bad funds was not because you actually received anything from funding institutions saying it didn't exist, but because of someone from your other department orally telling you that they were bad and the accounts don't exist. So this is day 2. Heather is still Heather's angle here is that because Monica doesn't have confirmation that the accounts don't exist, and maybe they do exist, and maybe the money did come from them. But Monica had just explained that it was impossible for the money to come from the Federal Reserve. By the way, her position changes on day 4. So keep this in mind moving forward. On day 1 and 2, she's still maintaining that the money came from the Federal Reserve. She changes her mind on day 4. We'll see that when we get to day 4. Next up is the FBI cybercrimes guy. It's actually kind of boring, but they do a lot of explaining what Facebook is. Anyways, they asked him, what is Government Exhibit 139? Answered, this is a Facebook page in the name of Randy Bean with Randall Bean's photograph and likeness. And he mentions that on July 3rd, he says, I just paid off all my debts with my trust account. Ask me. Question. Okay, and so did you subpoena records from Facebook? I did. I believe so. It has the same IP address that was found on the identification logs with USAA. And then AT&T identified the IP address as belonging to Randall Bean at 300 State Street. Well, I guess it doesn't matter if I say this. Anyways, so 139, you can see Randall's picture on this post, and what does he say on July 3rd? He says, I just paid off all my debts with my trust account. Ask me. Moving on. And then they go to the bottom of his wall. They have a long discussion about how Facebook walls work. Anyways, and if we could go to 140, if you go to the bottom of this page, please, and could you expand it? And what does it say? Answer, Steve Heather says, is this related to what HATJ posted? And Mr. Bean replied, yes. HATJ are initials for Heather and Tushy Giraffe, as the FBI experienced on internet postings and videos. Oh, question. Okay, and when you research the web, HATJ is that fairly common? Answer, it is. Question, and she refers to herself on the answer in writing. People on the internet use this abbreviation for Miss Heather and Tushy Giraffe. Next is Exhibit 141. This is a screenshot from Heather and Tushy's Facebook page. The irony is that they're basically in jail because they published everything all their crimes on Facebook. Anyways, this is a screenshot from Heather and Tushy Giraffe's Facebook page. Okay, and how do you know that it's her page? We found it pretty readily, easily with a unique name. I issued a subpoena to Facebook, and it's solicited to Heather and Tushy Giraffe. And also her phone number appears in the records that match the phone number that we've seen on an email to Whitney back from Miss Tushy Giraffe, where she includes that in her signature line, blah, blah. So basically, they prove that it's her account. Anyways, so if we could concentrate on the post from July 4th, 2017, what does it say? Heather and Tushy Giraffe posted, all on, you are all going faster than my fingers can type, and I love it. It's a link to a YouTube video on paying bills with a secret government account. I believe this one is, I believe that's Harvey Dent's video, but I'm actually not sure. Anyways, Heather screwed herself by posting, basically by incriminating herself on Facebook there. Anyways, Exhibit 442. Quote, this is a screenshot of Randall Bean's Facebook page where he shares the previous comment from Miss Tushy Giraffe So he added that post on his page, and it's repeat. It says Heather and Two-Shoe Giraffe all on. Now, by the way, keep in mind that when in July, Heather was telling people to access the accounts and to all on. That all on means all aboard, basically. Everybody keep on going. She was encouraging people to attempt to access the TDA accounts. Now, she's going to flip on day 4 and 5 and try to pretend that she didn't do that. So keep in mind what keep this in mind. Keep what she did in July in mind. And then there's another post from July 4th. If we can publish it to the jury, you can see what she posted at 4:48 p.m. And what does it say? This is a post by Heather. It says, "For all wondering where the Federal Reserve routing number 21050,466 in red on photos right-hand side of Harvey's video." She got the Federal Reserve numbers from Harvey Dent's video. This is a matter of public record. Heather and Two-Shoe Giraffe got the information from Harvey Dent. Harvey's video came from FedRes, New York, assisted a servicer, blah, blah. And then there's a link. Okay, and then if you could expand it, please. What is below that? Below that is a series of routing numbers, blah, blah. Now this is Heather. Heather gets a chance to ask the cybercrimes guy, and she asked him about the warrant. Did the task force that went to Buddy Gregg that day, the FBI, that was at the scene, were all aware that there was an active arrest warrant for Randall Bean, but there were no, I don't know what you mean by on the premises. Did we have a warrant on the premises? No. Did you have a warrant for Mr. Bean with you? Answer, I didn't have one with me, but we had knowledge that there was an active arrest warrant, and per your knowledge, was that, who issued that active arrest warrant? I don't recall. What steps did you take? So on day 2, Heather is still disputing the existence of the warrant. Once again, she's a little further on, a little later, she's still fighting about the warrant. You just stated there was a warrant, answered yes. Okay, and that's all that statement you've just made is still solely based on the fact that you were told by an FBI agent that it existed, blah, blah. The next guy is the sales manager at the RV place. He doesn't actually say anything interesting. They just interview him to see, to confirm that Randy purchased the RV. It's not actually there's nothing really interesting in there. Like, if you want to confirm that, you can just read it yourself. Actually, there is some interesting stuff. For example, Randall gave the name of the purchaser as Randall Keith Bean, duly factualized, which implicates Heather because he was getting this information about putting it in a trust and saying duly factualized from Heather. So that's how they're able to connect Heather to Randall's money laundering. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. But that's really about it for this guy. Okay, moving on to day 3. Alright, so the next witness is from Whitney Bank, and she is the senior investigator with corporate security. She's the security person for Whitney Bank. Whitney Bank is the bank that got the RV's bank. When Randy bought the RV, he moved the money from his account at USA to the RV dealership's account at Whitney Bank. Okay, this is the good part. Heather was emailing Whitney Bank to make sure that they would accept the funds, which were of course fraudulently obtained. That's why Heather is charged with money laundering. I think that might be one of the confusions people have. Money laundering isn't. There's 2 definitions of money laundering. There's the the street definition of money laundering is hiding money. The legal definition of money laundering is spending stolen money. So by Heather helping Randy spend money that he obtained fraudulently. She is conspiring to launder money. In other words, spend money that isn't Randall's money, that isn't theirs. That's what money laundering means in the federal sense. Anyways, they're going over an email that Heather sent Whitney Bank. Quote, this is an email you received from Mr. Giraffe, correct? And so could you read that first paragraph there? Quote, the way things are evolving at the moment, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York is laying the groundwork for you to have a copy of the metadata and outgoing ACH transmissions for account name Randall Keith Bean, located at said Federal Reserve Bank, which was the originating banking account, name of the funds, paid to you in full for the coach, and for any requirements of reporting you may need to do pursuant to AMLs, etc. Alright, so number one, why is this important? Because number one, she's lying to Whitney Bank. The money did not come from the Federal Reserve. That she even admits that in day 4 and day 5. And she also says that the account name Randall Keith Bean, that's not true either. Blah blah. But anyways, these emails are what's used to convince the jury that Heather was guilty. Anyways, and then right under these, you see that quote there appears to be from the Federal Reserve, and then again, this is the body of the email that Ms. Tucci sent you. She also attached another document to this email, blah, blah. She included her email, her phone number. Did she also sign it? Has a signature line all the way at the bottom. Yes. What does it say? Lawyer for Factualized Trust, Randall Keith Bean, and its trustee, Randall Keith Bean. Why is this important? Because Heather is not a licensed lawyer. She cannot tell people that she is Randall's lawyer because she can't be Randall's lawyer. It would be like me saying that I'm Randall's lawyer when again I'm not licensed. I can't be his lawyer. I can't be his dentist either because I'm not a licensed dentist. So the moment she put that in writing, she was committing fraud. So right there, she's lying to Whitney Bank when she says that she is his lawyer. So that allows the prosecution to establish intent to defraud, blah, blah. And obviously it worked because the jury went guilty. Anyways, so reading more of Heather's emails. Could you read that out? Answer, sure. I personally ran that investigation and coordinated with other local, international, and global investigators. If you have any questions in regard to that investigation for the purposes of your own records, feel free to contact them. Last paragraph. Now, all documentation, due verification, confirmation, reconfirmation notice have been duly served upon you for your own records of origin of funds and history of funds regarding the funds you duly received as full payment from trustee, blah, blah, blah. So Heather just talking nonsense. Anyway, on the other email, as previous, does she sign it as his lawyer? Yes. So I got 2 emails in which she lies.